Every Tuesday night in 1974, Americans gathered around their television sets to enter a world of pure, uncomplicated happiness. Happy Days premiered on ABC on January 15, 1974. The show was set in the 1950s in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It featured a tight-knit family called the Cunninghams and their lovable neighbors. The show was a celebration of American innocence, teenage friendship, first loves, and family togetherness. It was set in an era that people remembered or thought they remembered as simpler, better, more wholesome than the present moment. For 11 seasons, from 1974 to 1984, Happy Days was a top-rated television show. It spawned 4 successful spin-offs including Mork and Mindy and Laverne and Shirley, made stars out of unknown actors, and launched one of the most iconic television characters of all time. Every episode ended with the same message. Life can be tough, but if you have family and friends, you have everything you need. But behind the scenes of this wholesome, innocent sitcom, real actors who made it were living far darker, far more complicated, and far more tragic lives than anything that happened on screen. This is the true story of what really happened to the cast of Happy Days, and it is a story of ambition, addiction, sexual assault allegations, homelessness, and the dark reality that lay beneath the surface of America's happiest television show. Happy Days starred Ron Howard as Richie Cunningham, the good-hearted high school student at the center of the show. But Ron Howard was not unknown when he joined Happy Days. He was already famous. For 8 years, from 1960 to 1968, Howard had played Opie Taylor, young son of Andy Griffith on The Andy Griffith Show. He had grown up on television. Millions of Americans watched him transform from a 5-year-old child into a teenage boy. When The Andy Griffith Show ended in 1968, Ron Howard was 14 years old and already a household name. When he was cast on Happy Days 6 years later at age 20, he brought with him an audience that remembered him as sweet little Opie from Mayberry. Crossover audience helped make Happy Days an immediate success. Howard played the lead role. Richie Cunningham was supposed to be the star of the show, but something unexpected happened. One of the show's supporting characters became more popular than the lead. Henry Winkler, playing Arthur Fonzarelli, a leather jacket-wearing greaser with a heart of gold, became the breakout star of the show. Fonzie was cool. Fonzie was mysterious. Fonzie said things like, "Hey!" and snapped his fingers to make the jukebox work. Fonzie rode a motorcycle and had the confidence that teenagers dreamed of having. By the second season, ratings dipped when competition for some CBS's Good Times intensified. ABC made a decision they would lean into Fonzie. They would make him a more prominent character. The strategy worked. Happy Days shot back to the top of the ratings. But for Ron Howard, meant watching his own character fade into the background on his own show. Henry Winkler's story is different. Winkler stayed on Happy Days for all 11 seasons, from 1974 to 1984, became one of television's most iconic characters. The Fonz became bigger than the show itself. Fonzie merchandise was everywhere. Fonzie lunchboxes, Fonzie action figures, Fonzie leather jackets. Winkler's image became synonymous with cool, but unlike Ron Howard, who leveraged his time on the show to transition to directing, Winkler found the transition away from Happy Days extremely difficult. After the show ended in 1984, Winkler struggled to find major roles. He was trapped by the iconic nature of the Fonz. Every director saw him as Fonzie, not as an actor capable of playing complex, diverse characters. This is the curse of playing one iconic television role. You can become so associated with that character that it's nearly impossible to escape it. For decades, from 1984 until the early 2000s, Henry Winkler worked steadily, never achieved the kind of critical success that would have eluded him if he had moved away from the Fonz earlier. Appeared in films and television shows, but he remained in the shadow of the character that had made him famous. Then, in 2003, Winkler's career experienced a genuine renaissance. He was cast as Barry Zuckerkorn on Mitch Hurwitz's cult comedy series Arrested Development. The show was brilliant, and Winkler's role was complex and darkly comedic. It showed that he was a far more talented and versatile actor than Fonzie had suggested. Later in 2018, when Winkler was 72 years old, he was cast in HBO's Barry, playing Gene Cousineau, the acting coach and father figure to Bill Hader's main character. It was a role that required genuine emotional depth, vulnerability, and complexity, and Winkler was extraordinary in it. He won his first Emmy Award for the role at age 72. He has also written more than 40 children's books, including a series called Here's Hank about a child with dyslexia, which he himself has. As of 2026, Henry Winkler is 80 years old, is still alive. He is still working. He is still writing. He is still acting. In May 2026, delivered the commencement address at Emerson College, his alma mater. In an interview with USA Today in April 2026, Winkler spoke about why he never retired. He said, "It never occurred to me to retire because I am so happy in my house with my wife Stacy and our children and our grandchildren, and I am so happy when I am working. When I'm doing what I dreamed of doing and I still get to do it. I still get to be at the table. That is an amazement to me." Henry Winkler is the most successful cast member from Happy Days, not because of Happy Days, but because he refused to let Happy Days define him, and because he was patient enough to wait for the right opportunity to show that he was capable of so much more than one iconic television character. His journey from the Fonz to Barry Zuckerkorn to Gene Cousineau to a best-selling children's author represents the kind of persistence and grace that most people never achieve. Scott Baio played Chachi Arcola, Fonzie's younger cousin, on Happy Days starting in 1977. He was young, charming, and handsome. He became one of television's most recognizable teenage heartthrobs. The spin-off series Joni Loves Chachi paired him with Erin Moran, played Richie's younger sister Joni. The show was short-lived, but Baio went on to star in his own series called Charles in Charge, which ran from 1984 to 1990. It seemed like Scott Baio had successfully transitioned from Happy Days to his own successful career. But over the past decade, Scott Baio's public image has undergone a dramatic and troubling transformation. In 2017, when Erin Moran died, Scott Baio made insensitive comments suggesting that her death was the result of drug addiction and alcoholism. When her autopsy revealed that she had died from complications of stage 4 cancer, Baio's comments were widely criticized. He offered an explanation, saying he had read reports online suggesting drug overdose before the official cause of death was announced. But the damage was done. Sensitivity shown by other cast members, including Ron Howard and Henry Winkler, who spoke lovingly of Moran's contributions to the show, Baio's initial comments looked particularly callous. In 2018, matters became much more serious. Nicole Eggert, Baio's co-star on Charles in Charge, came forward with allegations that Baio had sexually assaulted her. She claimed that he had molested her when she was 14 years old and engaged in an inappropriate sexual relationship with her when she was 17. She was still a minor. Another actor from Charles in Charge, Alexander Polinsky, also came forward with allegations of sexual harassment and mistreatment by Baio. Polinsky claimed that Baio had used gay slurs against him, had told him inappropriate stories about his sexual encounters with young women, pulled down his pants in front of more than 100 people, and had exposed his genitals to him on multiple occasions. These were serious allegations. Baio denied the allegations and claimed he was being attacked because of his support for Donald Trump. Over the years, Baio has also faced multiple controversies over racist comments he made on social media. When criticized, he would respond by saying things like, "My wife's best friend is black, hello," as if having a black friend negated accusations of racism. He has become increasingly involved in right-wing politics, appearing at political rallies and making controversial statements. In 2025 and 2026, has largely disappeared from public view, though he has occasionally resurfaced to clarify that he is still alive. What was once a promising acting career has been largely derailed by allegations and controversies that have made him a pariah in the entertainment industry. The most heartbreaking story in the Happy Days cast is that of Erin Moran. Erin Moran joined the cast of Happy Days in 1974 as Joni Cunningham, Richie's younger sister. She was 13 years old. She had already been acting since childhood, experience in television and film before landing her role on Happy Days. For 9 seasons, from 1974 to 1982, Erin Moran was part of the Cunningham family. Her character Joni was sweet, funny, and relatable. Erin Moran became a beloved figure in American households. When the original run of Happy Days ended in 1982, she was given a spin-off show called Joni Loves Chachi, paired with Scott Baio. The show was short-lived, lasting only 2 seasons. Joni returned to Happy Days for the show's final season in 1984. After Happy Days ended, Erin Moran's career never reached the heights of her success on the show. She appeared in various television shows, including The Love Boat, Murder, She Wrote, and Diagnosis Murder, but she never landed another significant starring role. More importantly, she began to struggle with personal demons that no one knew about. Erin Moran battled alcoholism. She struggled financially despite having been one of the stars of one of television's most successful sitcoms. She made poor choices. She was involved in a series of personal crises that gradually eroded her ability to work and maintain stability in her life. In 2010, Erin Moran received a settlement from CBS after participating in a class action lawsuit by Happy Days cast members over merchandising revenue. The settlement was significant, but Moran found herself unable to manage her finances responsibly. Friends and colleagues later discovered that she had blown through much of the settlement money. She was evicted from a trailer home owned by her mother-in-law following what was described as a drunken brawl. By the mid-2010s, Erin Moran had become homeless. She was living in her car. She was living on the streets of Indiana. The contrast between Happy Days and the real-life tragedies of its cast is almost too painful to contemplate. The show was about family. It was about support. It was about togetherness. It was about the idea that no matter what happens in life, you have people who love you and will be there for you. But the cast members who brought this message to television did not always have that kind of support in their real lives. They were isolated by fame. They were trapped by the iconic nature of their television roles. They were vulnerable to the same kinds of personal crises and struggles that affect everyone, but they were forced to face those struggles alone, in public, while millions of people watched and judged. Ron Howard escaped the trap of being defined by his television role by walking away early and pursuing his true passion. His career became more successful because he refused to accept the safety of what he already had. Henry Winkler eventually escaped the trap, but it took him decades of patience and perseverance. He had to wait until he was 72 years old to finally show the world that he was capable of so much more than playing the Fonz. Tom Bosley struggled silently with illness and died without ever fully transitioning away from the roles that had defined his career. Scott Baio never escaped at all. He became so enamored with the fame and the character that when he finally had to move beyond it, had no foundation to stand on, and his career eventually collapsed under the weight of his own actions and choices. And Erin Moran, youngest and most vulnerable member of the cast, was crushed by the system. She never learned how to manage fame. She never developed the emotional resilience or the support system that she would need to survive after Happy Days ended. She died alone and poor, despite having been one of television's beloved young stars. Happy Days was a show about the nostalgia for a simpler, happier time, made Americans feel good about themselves and about their country. It celebrated wholesome values and family togetherness. The real story of Happy Days is far more complicated than that. It is a story about the cost of fame. It is a story about the difficulty of transitioning from youth to adulthood in the public eye. It is a story about the fragility of human beings and about the fact that success in one area of life does not guarantee happiness or stability in any other area. It is a story about the importance of having genuine support and love around you, not the kind of love that comes from millions of strangers watching you on a television screen, but the kind of real, human love that comes from true friendship and family. Today, as we look back on Happy Days more than 40 years after it premiered, should remember not just the show itself, but the real people who made it. We should remember that the actors who portrayed the perfect American family were themselves imperfect, struggling, and human. We should remember that Henry Winkler never gave up, even when it seemed like he'd be trapped as the Fonz forever. We should remember that Ron Howard had the wisdom to walk away from comfort in pursuit of something he loved more. We should remember that Tom Bosley worked through illness and pain without letting anyone know. We should remember that Scott Baio made choices that cost him his career and his reputation. And we should remember Erin Moran, not as a cautionary tale, but as a young woman who was beloved, who made people laugh, and who deserved better than the life and death that she experienced. Happy Days is still beloved. It is still watched. It is still relevant. But if there is one thing that the real stories of the cast members teach us, it is that the happiness that the show portrayed was always just that, portrayal. Real happiness is more fragile, more complicated, and more valuable than anything that can be filmed and broadcast on television. Real happiness requires real support, real love, and real human connection. It requires people who are there for you, not because you are famous or because you can make them laugh, but because they genuinely care about you as a human being. If you have watched Happy Days, or if you have loved this video, please share your memories of the show in the comments below. Which character did you relate to most? Which cast member's story moved you the most? Because remembering these real human stories is how we honor the people who brought joy to so many lives, even as they were struggling in their own.